What's going on, everybody? It is that time again, the Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 100.
Big 1-0. Oh,
Little Wilt Chamberlain on this Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. Josh Callaway, James E. Jackson, Tom Green. 31 days from the opener, 1 month from today, Oklahoma Temple at the stadium. Players are reporting today. Fall camp officially starts first practice tomorrow, Wednesday. It's a festive day. It feels good. We're excited. We're very pumped to be here. We're getting ready to kick off our second season of Sooners Illustrated, second football season. And first off, episode 100, guys, kind of wild. We started doing the show a little over a year ago. It was right after Big 12 Media Days was our first episode last year. So it's been just a year and change, and we've hit 100 episodes. Pretty cool. Appreciate everyone who has jumped aboard. The YouTube channel has grown a lot, certainly since then. Basically started from scratch last summer.
Yeah, for sure.
The podcast has picked up more and more, and it's been an awesome first 100 episodes. And we hope that we can do a good one here on number 100, and then obviously have many hundreds more to follow. But pretty cool, I would say. You guys want to speak on that at all? I mean, pretty neat to get on.
We haven't scared everybody off yet, which is good.
So far, yeah.
We haven't made fools of ourselves too much. And no, we're just appreciative of everybody that's been listening to us and has been joining us along this ride for the last, year and change right now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I feel like we're getting really good at this as well. Like I'm on a hot spot right now. Hopefully it holds together for episode 100. Like it's crazy the things that we battle through. And I know, Josh, you've had a couple of those throughout this stretch,
Sure.
Just figuring that out. So figuring it out and keeping the shows going to get to 100 is just amazing. As Tom said, I appreciate everybody sticking around and hanging out with us this whole time. So it's great.
Yeah. And for those who listen to us and are not yet members of Sooners Illustrated, we are currently running a fall camp special, 60% off an annual VIP membership. So if you're not a member yet, what are you waiting for? Hop on. It's going to be a fun season in the SEC.
100%. This is a great time for it. I mean, like we said, first practice is tomorrow. We're getting to the good stuff here. And so it'd be a great time. Jump aboard, like Tom said, great fall camp special. Mosey on over to the site to get more details on that. You also get access to the full 24/7 Sports Network. We've talked about
everyone.
Before.
Every team.
Be sure and come aboard with us. Sooners Illustrated. It's going to be a really fun season. We're pumped to get this thing started. And that's what the show is going to be today. Obviously, the majority fall camp. Like we said, players are reporting today. The first practice is tomorrow. Little programming note, this will be the only show this week. Colin's out of town on vacation for the rest of the week. So he's going to be,
I guess James is too.
Time to himself. We lost James. We'll get him back in a second, hopefully. So Colin will be gone. So we're going to have just the one show this week, and then we'll reconvene back next week. We'll get back on the kind of two-show normal throughout the rest of the season. I mean, the rest of the year, obviously, essentially. But we're excited. It's going to be a fun season, and we're pumped to be here and kick off with a little bit of fall camp preview here. So that's what the show is going to be today. We're going to dive into fall camp preview, players to watch, storylines, position battles are sticking out. We'll do a little bit of hoop stuff on the back end as well. They picked up another transfer, and I've stayed hot on the recruiting trail because just all of a sudden, Porter Moser's on a heater on that front. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well on the back end of the program. All right, so we got James back. Fall camp preview. Let's just start, I think, the best way. We're going to try and keep this as organized as we can. Let's just start with players to watch, which is very open-ended. There's a lot of directions you can take it. It can either be, true freshman you're excited to see. I mean, just new transfer pickup, guy who you think can make a jump. There's a lot of directions you could take it. So let's open it with that. Everybody take maybe one or two guys. Tom, you can start if you'd like. Just one or two guys that in particular are of intrigue to you over the next month.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a cop-out, but since I'm going first, I'm just going to give the obvious answers here. I'm going to choose Branson Hickman and Dominic Williams.
There you go.
The two big transfers they added after the spring, two guys that are going to be starters going into the season. Branson Hickman, very, clearly the most experienced offensive lineman that they have, 33 career starts over the last 3 years, over 2,400 snaps. Just really good center, one of the best in college football last season, according to Pro Football Focus. Just named to the Outland Trophy watch list, which goes to the nation's top interior linemen on either side of the ball. So, he comes with high expectations, and he's going to be the general of that offensive line. He's going to be the anchor of that unit, and he has not taken a official practice snap yet.
Mm.
So we've talked about all the questions that the offensive line has, but them adding him and kind of being that steadying hand and veteran experience, it should go a long way toward the overall outlook of the line and make Jackson Arnold's life easier, knowing that he's got someone that's got that sort of experience and kind of track record in front of him. Then on the other side, Dominic Williams. I mean, we talked about their need for more depth at the defensive tackle spot, especially after losing Jacob Lacey to forced medical retirement before the spring. And you bring in a guy who's a former freshman All-American. I mean, he's going to be an impact type player on this line, and I'm curious to see how he's going to be able to do in the SEC. I mean, he's got 27 career starts under his belt over his first 2 seasons. He started every game that he's played in, I believe. And look, he's a guy that's going to help, hold that point of attack and fortify that defensive line as this defense tries to take a next step. So I want to see what those two guys look like in practice.
For sure. I mean, obviously, a players to watch. I mean, you want to see how Jackson Arnold handles everything. I mean, he's got talented guys behind him now, and it's Tom said he got the obvious answer. I feel like that's the most obvious because it's your star quarterback. If the quarterback is great, this entire season could look really, really good. In terms of what he can do on the football field. So that's where I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Jackson Arnold on this. It's just the easy softball question answer, I guess. But that's where I want to go with it.
Yeah, for me, there's a few. To stick with one or two, I'm going to start with PJ. PJ Adebawore is a huge one for me. He's a major X factor as far as what kind of leap he can make in year 2. That edge room is pretty deep. You have Ethan Downs back, and you brought Caden Woolard in, who also could be in consideration for this. And also our Mason Thomas, and you brought in the freshman Daniel Coy, so Trace Ford. I mean, it's a deep room, but PJ is one of those guys that he can elevate your defense to another stratosphere if he continues to develop. He's a 5-star for a reason. Was a 5-star. He's a freak of nature. He's an alien. We talked about that many times. He just
over
looks
260 now.
Everybody else. Yeah, he just looks different than everybody else. He's not normal. And so if he continues to bulk up, and I'm curious to see what kind of gains he had over Schmitty's season in the summer. Like, it's just, I'm very excited to see him. So he's a big one for me. If I was going to flip over and do offense, there's a few options. I'm tempted to go a few different directions, but I think I'm going to go with Jaden Gibson here. And the reason I'm going to go with Jaden Gibson, he's been he's been so talked about as the overlooked guy that he's almost become one of the most hyped guys now. They had the coaches luncheon last week, and somebody asked one of the coaches, it was Joe John Finley, I believe, what's one guy that we're just simply not talking about enough? And with very little hesitation, he said Jaden Gibson. This is a guy that, with all the big names in that receiver room, with they bring in Deion Burks, and you have Angelo Anthony coming back, and obviously Nick Anderson and Jalil Farouk still around. It's a crazy deep room. We talked about that a bunch of times. Somehow Jaden Gibson has gone a little overlooked. He's a monster. He's got length for days. He had, if you were to rank maybe the top 10 highlights of last year, he probably had like 5 of them. He was making crazy plays every week, it felt like, toward the back end of the year especially. So he's a big one for me too, because it just feels like he is ready to make a big jump. He's motivated. He's got all the talent in the world. It's just kind of all feels like it's coming together for him. So he's a big one for me as well. Honorable mention. What are some other ones?
Yeah, no, I just to piggyback off the Jaden Gibson thing.
Yeah.
The thing that really interests me with him, obviously Nick Anderson was the big breakout star last year, but Jaden Gibson, in kind of, fewer opportunities, made the most of those opportunities. 14 catches, 5 touchdowns. I think he led the team in contested catch rate, or at least contested catches, which, kind of surprised a lot of people because he came into the year with questions about his hands. But I want to see what the opportunity looks like for him heading into week 1, just because, Andrew Anthony still isn't fully cleared coming off that ACL. They hope to get him practicing before that opener. Jalil Farouk, he's back, but they sound like they have a very regimented plan to kind of keep him healthy and then ramp him up before week 1. Do those limitations to those two guys kind of open the door for Jaden Gibson to maybe earn a starting job going into week 1 alongside Nick Anderson and Deion Burks? That is a very dangerous trio of wide receivers.
Yeah, right.
I mean, look, we talked about how deep that room is. It's the deepest position on this team. You can throw any combination of guys out there and still feel really good about that room. But I want to see if Jaden Gibson might have an opportunity to be a starter, at least going into the season, until everybody's kind of 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a good chance of, getting more opportunities out there because I know Jaleel Fruit is kind of going to be moving around a lot more as he talked about doing a lot of other things as well besides just playing that outside receiver. So you get a chance to get Jaden Gibson in there. And let me throw a defensive guy in there too because I missed that opportunity when I went earlier. So let me throw in Gentry Williams as a cornerback, as a player to watch for OU
Yeah.
because he was banged up a lot last year. And when in the times that he was in there, he was highly productive, like, very staple, very good guy for that OU defense. So having him there, can he stay healthy and be available for this team? Because I think he has really high expectations this season, especially trying to help lead that defense. So I think I'm gonna go with Gentry Williams, the hometown kid there too.
Yeah, that cornerback room is so fascinating to me because you have a 6-year veteran in Woody Washington who, I want to see how much he's going to move around to different spots. We saw that a little bit in the spring. Is he going to play more safety? Is he going to play some cheetah too? But then a healthy Gentry Williams is, a probably day 1 or day 2 NFL talent if he can stay healthy and put it all together. Kanai Walker was really good last year as their second most utilized cornerback, I think it was. And then you bring in a guy like Des Malone, who's got a lot of experience. Like, where does he kind of fit into that puzzle? And I was really impressed with, their second-year players in the spring too, Jacoby Johnson and Makari Vickers. It's like, what kind of roles and what's that rotation going to look like between all of those guys? It's a good problem to have. Brent Venables has harped on it again and again, competitive depth, and they've done a really good job of just, recruiting and developing that depth over these first, 2+ years that he's been around. But one other guy that I want to mention that I'm kind of anxious to see that we didn't really get to see in the spring because he was coming off an injury was Jaron Hatchett, transfer from Washington. He's been around college football for a while. He was part of a offensive line that took home the Joe Moore Award last year. Started a handful of games, but dealt with injuries. Even though he's got years of experience, he doesn't have a whole lot of reps in game. I think he's only got like 350 career snaps. But he's a guy that, is probably going to slot into that starting job at left guard. Heard good things about him coming out of the summer. They really like his leadership and the way he's handled everything through offseason workouts. So I want to see what he looks like with that offensive line and just, whether it's going to be him or Heath Ozeta that kind of emerges at that left guard spot. But I think that, they really want Jaron Hatchett as more of a veteran experienced player to be able to kind of take the reins and, lock down that interior line with Branson Hickman and Febechi Wewu.
Yeah. Kendall Dolby's still floating around in that cornerback room too. It's a deep spot. Completely agree on Hatchett. I feel like true freshmen almost deserve their own category with this thing, but David Stone, low-hanging fruit. David Stone. I mean,
Taylor Tatum,
certainly. Taylor Tatum is a hard thing, because, I've covered college football for a while, and Tom, you covered it longer than me. It seems, in my experience, it's really hard for freshmen who don't enroll early to make an impact as true freshmen. Obviously, Tatum was not here in the spring, but Taylor Tatum's different. He's number 1 running back for a reason. He's not normal. He's not like everyone. So I'm interested to see that because that running back 2 spot is wide open. Might get into that in a minute. It's wide open pretty much after Gavin Sawyer. A lot of guys, it's up for grabs. So, I'm very interested to see Taylor Tatum because, when we were out at camp back in June, he's not doing anything. He's just helping out. But it was like, that does not look like a freshman. It just didn't, So he's a big one for me. On that same vein with that running back conversation, Caleb Hicks is another big one for me. Had a great spring. He was kind of that guy as a freshman. He kind of always thought, like, maybe they should consider using him. They never really did. He's in the mix, certainly, for that running back 2 job. So there's a lot of guys that certainly you could talk about. We could talk about half the roster here, but those are probably most of the big ones for me. And like I said, true freshmen almost deserve their own category because there's all of them. I kind of want to see all of them. I kind of want to see Michael. I want to see all of them. So
Benny Okoye, guys like that,
right, for sure. So what about storylines / position battles? You kind of take it either direction. There's a lot of them. Whether it's a position battle, it's a storyline. I mean, the team has got new coordinators, got to revamp the line. There's a million things. So what's maybe the 1 or even 2 if you want to go into it, biggest storylines that you're most interested in watching unfold or questions you have that you're looking for to be answered, however you want to take that over the next, month or so here?
We can go the obvious route again and kind of beat a dead horse and talk about the offensive line, replacing all 5 regular starters. I feel like it's been, talked about ad nauseum at this point. I feel like they go into fall camp with a pretty good idea of what that starting 5 is going to look like right now, just coming out of the spring. again, is Jaron Hatchett going to, fully emerge at that left guard spot? Because they like the development that Heath Ozada's made there. But I feel like, Jaron Hatchett's probably going to be the guy there. Jake Taylor pretty much spent all of spring in that, starting spot at right tackle. Spencer Brown, is he going to make enough progress because he's got the experience? Is he going to be able to, overtake him for that job? But otherwise, it feels like they know the personnel that they want with that offensive line. It's just a matter of how quickly can that unit come together and mesh. That's what the off season's for. That's what fall camp's for. That's what Bill Bedenbaugh's getting paid over $1 million for, to make sure everything's right there.
Right.
But outside of that, I think, one of the more intriguing things to me, just a couple position battles, tight end, because, Bauer Sharp, we came out of spring, all of us were really high on him, but we didn't really get to see Jake Roberts because he was banged up. But he's a guy that's played in Seth Luttrell's offense for a few years, had his best season of his career playing for Seth Luttrell. So I want to see, I think we're going to see some 2 tight end sets with both those guys on the field at times too, but who's going to be that top guy? And then in the linebacker room, who's going to start next to Danny Stutzman? I mean, they return every key piece from that rotation last year. Kip Lewis finished last season as the guy alongside him. Lewis Carter got a lot of first-team reps in the spring after not playing much last season. And then Jaron Canick's still hanging around, and he's a guy that's got starting experience too. It's like, how much progress has he made in the offseason? So, again, it's a good problem to have that sort of depth. It's interesting to me that a lot of the position battles on this team, it feels like, aren't so much of, oh man, Oklahoma doesn't have anybody here, who's going to step up. It's they've got some options now that this roster is kind of more where Brent Venables wants it. Who's going to be the guy that comes and takes it?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest storylines for this team outside of the offensive line, because we talked about it a lot, but just how good is this defense really going to be? I mean, I feel like a lot of the rankings that OU's in, being higher up is because everybody assumes this defense is going to be really good, like a top 10 defense in college football. So just trying to figure out where that's going to be. How good is this defense going to gel together and things like that? Now, as we talked about, you bring everybody back in the secondary. You bring a lot of good linebackers back. The defensive line has been, buffed up pretty much for this conference. So it all looks good on paper. It all looks really good on paper. And, can they continue to turn the ball over the way they were doing it last year, that secondary and this defense? Like, is that going to be another really big strength for this team? And so I think how good this defense is going to be is a really good storyline to follow for this team, especially looking at through fall camp and seeing how those guys gel together, just things like that. And I'll go to special teams for the position battle just because I think that's kind of a little bit, we still don't know, even though Brent Venables did say Tyler Keltner is leading right now for that kicking position. I want to see what other guys look like, Liam Evans, Zach Schmidt, seeing who's actually going to come away with it, because a lot of things can change throughout fall camp, especially for those special teams guys. So that's going to be a position battle to watch for, because last year kicking was such a big deal for this team. And there was a lot of things that fans griped about. Who's going to be that guy for them this year?
Right. 100% agree. Couple that we've, halfway mentioned already, but again, running back 2 is very interesting to me. It's been one that I've been on. I mean, Gavin Sawchuk's going to get his carries. That's a given. But after that, in the spring game, when Javonte Barnes didn't get any carries and we did the post-spring game show, we were all kind of like, that was weird. And there was, I'm sure, a lot of speculation that, he probably might be portaling and leaving after that. He didn't. He's still here. He has a very close relationship with DeMarco Murray.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll see. I've always been a big Javonte Barnes fan. I mean, we saw what he did in 2022. He was great. And last year was just a lost year for him. Does he bounce back? We just talked about Caleb Hicks. They brought in Sam Franklin. You have Taylor Tatum. I mean, it's a deep room.
David Robinson.
For grabs. So I'm very interested in that. Tom kind of mentioned Woody Washington is basically a one-man position battle as far as where do you put him? Cornerback, could play some safety, maybe Cheetah. That's interesting to me, and just kind of the domino effect from that move. If he's Cheetah, okay, now who joins Gentry Williams? Is it Vickers? Is it Des Malone? And then same thing with safety. It's just kind of the puzzle pieces there is very interesting to me. And then just kind of an overarching year 2 as far as, we mentioned Arnold and I mentioned PJ earlier, but also looping Peyton Bowen in. Those 3 guys were all 5 stars. supposed to be face of the program guys going into the SEC. Now it's time. I mean, it's kind of time. I mean, they're all still young. It's year 2 for all of them, but the bar is so high for all of them. I'm just curious to see if those 3 guys really start to become bigger leaders and just look like the player. I mean, just kind of all of it, what they're supposed to be. I feel like this is where we can start to kind of see that take shape. So all 3 of those guys for me as well.
I want to circle back on what James was saying about special teams. Like Tyler Kellner's the odds-on favorite to win that starting kicking job. Brent Venables said it himself at the coaches' luncheon last week.
Yep.
The bigger, the more intriguing thing for me with special teams is just how quickly can Doug Deacon turn things around there. He routinely had a top 15 unit when he was overseeing things at San Diego State. Like, is he going to be able to replicate that or get close to that in year 1 in Oklahoma? Because special teams was, to put it kindly, it was a mixed bag last season. Obviously, the kicking troubles were really bad. The muff punts reared their head again and again, but there were some good things there. I mean, obviously Peyton Bowen had a couple blocked kicks. Luke Elzinga really emerged there. There were some things to like. It's just, can Doug Deacon, get his hands on there and kind of mold it how, he wants it to. And everything we've heard from the guys during the spring was that he knows what he wants to do and he's going to implement his plan. And again, Brent Venables' big thing that he harped on again and again is just efficiency in that area. And they hope that Doug Deacon can, help them get more efficient and just better all around on special teams.
100%. 100%. That punt return job is, up for grabs too. I mean, obviously Gavin Freeman was the guy there last year. He's playing his football, in Stillwater now. So that's going to be interesting to see who they put there. You imagine that first practice, you'll probably see 6, 7, 8 guys over there. Who actually wins that job will be interesting. There's a lot of things. We're excited to see the team. I've talked about this a little bit last year, but it's like at this point, when you start to get into, it's almost August, it's like the team is not even a real thing. It's like they're more of a concept than a team. And so the fact that we actually get to see some of these new guys is going to be great. So look forward to it. We don't actually know as of now when like the first open practice is going to be for media and things like that. Keep an eye out for that at some point. Also, we'll have practice footage on the YouTube channel and takeaways and all that stuff on the site whenever that is. We don't know when that is right now. The first practice is tomorrow, Wednesday, but we're kind of at the mercy of when do they actually let us out there, which we don't know when that is, but it'll be soon, one way or another. So anything else from fall camp before we move on to some other stuff to wrap up that sticks out, player, anything? Any last things you guys want to get out there?
I think we covered it all pretty extensively.
A lot of ground, honestly, kind of in the last 20 minutes. All right, well, cool. Before we go, though, a little bit of hoops. So Porter Moser has been on a bit of a heater out of nowhere here.
Yeah.
They win. They added Glenn Taylor from St. John's. I want to talk about that first. But they didn't have any scholarships to give, right? I mean, this was he's basically a walk-on. Now, obviously, NIL has muddied what that even means. It's not like he's literally paying his own way the whole way to come to school here, but they went and added Glenn Taylor from St. John's. I mean, obviously, we found out they lost Jeff Wanko. We talked about that last week, and they go and pick up this kid. What do you make of it? It kind of was a little bit of an out of nowhere thing. Like, whoa, okay, you're not used to talking about basketball picking up transfers in July, but that's what happened. Is this significant? Where are you kind of at on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising. We kind of thought they were done after the Jeremiah Fears edition,
right?
Which again was another one that was a little bit surprising. It was tracking that way for a couple of weeks, but back a month and a half ago, we thought that this roster was complete after they picked up Mo Wagwe from Alabama, and when they finally announced that he was signed, we're like, all right, all done. Scholarships are filled, but they're finding ways to improve this roster, kind of bolster things. The Glenn Taylor pickup's interesting. He's a guy that's got experience. I don't think he's going to be a starter like I thought Jeff Nwanko could be, but he's another guy. He shot 42.4% from beyond the arc last season. He's another guy that gives you some outside shooting and some floor spacing, which is something they've really emphasized this offseason, especially, if you get Christian or Jeremiah Fears in there, facilitating and running the offense kind of the way that we've seen him play from his highlights and, heard from some of our, recruiting scouts and stuff like that. Open up the floor, give him some spacing, and let him cook, basically.
Yeah.
So I think there's just another addition that kind of helps with that. I think it's a nice pickup considering, where it came in the cycle. Guy that's got experience, decent shooter. It's not going to be a 1-for-1, replacement for Jeff Iwanko, because I think that's a guy that, had potential to be really good this year. But I think it's a fine pickup for Oklahoma at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
His most productive year was 2 years ago when he was with Oregon State. He came from Oregon State, went over to St. John's. He averaged 12, 4, and 2 with the Beavers 2 years ago in the Pac-12, which is rest in peace. And it's at 6'6", like that'll do. I mean, as far as a late July ad, like we'll see what it actually ends up being.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, not a bad little pickup in late July when you kind of thought, again, like you just said, the roster was done. This is what it is. We lost Jeff Iwanko. That sucks. And it is what it is. I mean, all things considered, I mean, not bad. Not a bad pickup at all. Sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I was going off of Tom's, thinking like it's weird that they're picking up guys this late because there's no scholarships left on the thing. Like when Chris Parker, he reached out to me, he was a transfer candidate. He was saying he was coming to visit, and I was like, okay, that seems kind of weird because it's just I don't know where you're gonna be.
Same, yeah.
It's gonna be an ideal deal. Just how's it gonna work? So that was what I was gonna just throw in there. It's pretty interesting stuff that that Porter Moser is doing right now. Getting guys excited about coming back or coming to Oklahoma and things like that. So that's really good for him.
Yeah, and I think that no matter what, you can't really complain about a pickup like this because it's not coming at the expense of a scholarship spot. You're just kind of adding to what you've already brought in terms of scholarship distribution and stuff, and you're just finding ways to improve in the margins, which for a team like this, that has kind of been the difference in 2 of Porter Moser's first 3 years. Just narrowly missing out here, narrowly missing out there. That's why they were the first team out last year. That's why they were the second team out his first year. If you can find, ways to improve just tiny bits here and there, I think that helps your outlook long term, even if, this isn't going to be a guy that's going to make a huge impact. If he can just help elevate the team a little bit, I think it goes a long way.
Continuing with the heater too, because they added Jeremiah Fears we talked about, and then they added Glenn Taylor. It's these are both adds to this year's roster too, because like we talked about, Fears moved up, reclassified up a year. They also went and dipped into 2025 and got a commitment from Alec Blair. This also came together very quickly. This kid is a top 40 player in our 24/7 sports rankings in 2025. And he's a two-sport athlete. He also plays baseball. He's a very good baseball player as well. He's a two-way guy. He's a pitcher, and he hits as well at the high school level, at least. This also came out a little bit out of nowhere. Again, a top 40 player. What a pickup this is, and we'll see what it ends up being down the road. I mean, I know a lot of the focus is on, of course, this season, and rightfully so. But this is another significant add. Now he does project to be a pretty darn good baseball player, so there is some belief maybe he'll just end up signing at high school and never make it to college. But nevertheless, if he decides he wants to play both sports, a la a Taylor Tatum, who probably also could have got signed at high school as a baseball player but wanted to play both sports, Oklahoma's got him in the can here, committed. This is a heck of a pickup. This is the highest rated recruit OU basketball has had since Trae Young, and this happened out of nowhere. What do we make of this one? This is also another one that kind of was just look at that kind of sort of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if he ultimately makes it to campus and Jeremiah Fears is around for a second year, I think that's an incredible tandem to kind of build your team around.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Fears, he's a guard, but he's kind of more of a score first type guard, whereas Alec Blair, he's a bigger wing, but he kind of plays more like a facilitating point guard. So kind of the two-man game between those two, just the idea of it is very intriguing to me, even though it's kind of a year plus out from being possible. But I mean, again, like you said, Porter's been on a heater. Staff's done a good job.
It's crazy.
It's got to be something like Skip Johnson had to have an involvement in it as well. Like he's
100%.
obviously helped the football team out a lot with getting these top recruits, and it seemed like that was another big thing for Alec Blair. He spoke about it on the 24/7 Sports Network where he committed it, and he talked a lot about it. And he's really excited about doing this. I know people speculate that he's going to go to the MLB and get into the draft, play baseball professionally, but he seemed like he was like, I want to play both sports. It seemed like he was really open to that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just be interesting to see what happens with him down the line.
And it is very rare, basketball, baseball, because the seasons do overlap quite a bit in college. I'm fascinated to see how that works. Some guys have done it. Ryan Miner, of course, famously did it at OU. So very interested to see how that shakes out. And like we talked about before, and Collins talked about it, Oklahoma has managed to become a destination for two-sport guys, especially guys who play baseball, because I'm not pretending to know all the intricacies of it, but something that Skip and that baseball staff, they do, or the plan they have, is very laid out, and it speaks to high school guys. We talk about Taylor Tatum, we talk about James Nesta, obviously going back to Kyler Murray, guys like that who have played multiple sports and they've made it work. And Skip's a huge part of that, and he does it again. So Skip has just kind of been helping the other programs of the last couple of years pick up guys like this, and another one here in the tank with Alec Blair. All right, I think that's it. Good show. Again, appreciate everyone tuning in for 100 episodes. We'll be back next week, hopefully reacting to some fall camp that we saw. I have no clue. Again, we don't know what the schedule is right now, but we'll get into at least the early part of fall camp next week on the show as they get the first couple practices under their belt by next week. And we'll get into this thing as we shift into August. It is getting very close to go time, and we're very, very excited. So looking forward to that. Again, 60% off, right? Fall camp special right now. Become a VIP member. Great time to do it. Jump aboard with us. Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma.247sports.com. For James E. Jackson and Tom Green, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.